gotta go.
Hey, guy, you're the first serious gamer I've seen all morning. Check this out. Brand new 16-bit Super Nintendo with Super Mario World. Wow!
Oh, what's this one?
Oh, this is a Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega Genesis. Hey, look at these radical colors, huh?
Wow, Sonic's fast, too.
No, over here.
I like Genesis, and it costs a lot less.
Wait, kid, that game
I'll
there.
take Sonic and Genesis.
I knew that.
Sonic the Hedgehog. More action, more speed. Sega Genesis. It's a whole lot more for less.
The year is 2006. I'm a young kid, and it's early in the morning, so I decide to sneak downstairs to play my GameCube. The game of my choice? Sonic Heroes. Now, things like this are some of my first memories as a kid, and in fact I still own that same copy of Sonic Heroes today. It's actually one of my most played games on the GameCube, along with games like Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and the original LEGO Star Wars prequel game. One of which, that I mentioned, is going to get reviewed in the future, so look forward to that. As I grew up, I eventually came to rediscover those older games that I used to play, and the one that stuck with me the most was, once again, Sonic Heroes. And it was from that point on that I started doing more research on what Sonic was, where did all these other characters in the game come from, things like that, and over time, those thoughts led me from being a casual Sonic fan to a pretty hardcore one, and at a really good time too, as the 20th anniversary was just around the corner, so I was pretty much picking up games like Sonic Colors and Sonic Classic Collection for the DS, so when Generations came up and provided all this nostalgia for games I had already played, it just skyrocketed from there, and I eventually came to own every mainline Sonic game, because I wanted to experience all the stages that Generations offered. Anyway, the reason I wanted to begin this video off with that tangent was to show how long I've been invested with the Sonic franchise, and part of the reason I wanted to make this review in the first place. Where do I start on Sonic? Well, we all know the story. It's 1991, and after Sega held a company-wide contest to create a mascot to compete with Mario, we ended up with Sonic the Hedgehog, a weird mishmash of Santa Claus, Michael Jackson, and a cute-ass land animal. And along with the Blue Hedgehog was the creation of his arch-nemesis, Dr. Ivo Robotnik. Yes, that is his full name before he got turned into Eggman. So, his design was inspired by Teddy Roosevelt, ironically enough. Yeah, go figure. It was the President of the United States. Yeah, I'm guessing all those expeditions and all those huntings are coming back to bite you right in the ass, huh, Teddy? But with things like that out of the way, the creation of the game began slowly afterwards. And with the persistence of Sonic Team, including legends like programmer Yuji Naka and composer Masuto Nakamura, and many more, the game came out on June 23rd, 1991, and upon the game's release, it was an instant success for a multitude of reasons. Now, while I can go more in depth into the history of Sonic and his creation, and the backstories of all the games and such, I feel like there's people who have already done it in a much better way than I ever could have. So if you really want to know more about that, then go watch the Billiam or the Game Apologist retrospective on Sonic 1 if you really want to know more about the history of it, because it's really fascinating and they explain it so much better than I think I could ever. So yeah, feel free to check them out. So in this video we will look at the game stage by stage and try to piece together what made Sonic 1 so great and memorable. Also, for clarity's sake, I will be reviewing the two best releases of Sonic 1, in my opinion, aka the mobile version and the Sega Ages version, since not only do they include a bunch of extra separate modes that make the experience much more desirable, but they also include a toggleable spin dash. Now, hold off from typing that angry comment and please hear me out here. Sonic 1, without the spin dash, is still a masterpiece of a game to play, and is really loads of fun. However, I won't lie and say that with the spin dash on, it's a much more overall enjoyable experience. But do note that this won't really impact my review, as for reasons I will go into in the next section. But until then, keep this in the back of your mind that in the grand scheme of things, the spin dash does not really affect how I view the original Sonic 1. And the main reason I'm putting out the Sega Ages version and the mobile versions is because, once again, I feel they're mainly the superior ports of Sonic 1, aside from the PC version. But even on the PC version, you can just mod in the spin dash. But with everything now out of the way, let's go on and get started and start off the Sonic the Hedgehog retrospective. So, Green Hill Zone. Alright, out of all seriousness here, we're looking at the original Green Hill Zone in this review. Trust me, we'll get to the copies eventually. Not all of them though, because let me tell you, I had to seek out 10 plus different Green Hill Zones while looking for all that footage in that montage. And while I am dedicated to this channel, you bet your ass I am not gonna seek out a copy of Sonic Blast. To be honest though, it's understandable why it gets remade a lot. The first Green Hill Zone pretty much set the standard for what Sonic should be, with the gameplay being fast and smooth, the color palette, the design of things like the iconic loops. Don't even get me started on the music, because my god, the biggest smile on my face appears whenever I hear that iconic Green Hill Zone theme play. And all of this makes sense once you find out that Green Hill Zone is the stage they spent the most time on. You see and feel the love and passion they just put into the stage, and because of that, it's just a fun stage, and that's the best way I can describe it. I can't tell you the amount of times I've just booted up Sonic 1 just to play that iconic stage, which for a stage that's almost 30 years old, I think that says a lot about its longevity and its memorability. And while I'm at it, I might as well fulfill my word about what I said early on in the video. Let's talk about how Sonic controls in this game, and for that matter, how classic Sonic plays in general. Sonic plays how you think he would play in this game. He's pretty much super fast and can carry some serious momentum, allowing you to speed through certain sections of the level as long as you don't get hit or reach a point where you have to slow down. Sonic's controls in general are really simple, as all you need is a D-pad/analog stick and one button. The game translates so well into mobile. I actually own Sonic 1, 2 CD and Episode 4 all on my phone, and I can vouch they play super well, and if not better sometimes than they do on console. To add on, if you're playing an updated version of the game such as the Sega Ages version or the mobile version, you are going to have access to the spin dash, which just busts the game wide open, in a good way of course, because it solves one of the biggest issues that people have had with the game for a while, and that's the lack of spin dash. As a result, the gameplay can be faster, you can be more daring and creative in how you approach the levels, and in some cases, you can even get out of sticky situations you normally wouldn't be able to get out of, expanding on the versatility and how much fun you can have with the game. And the best part is, Green Hill Zone allows you to explore a lot of what I just mentioned freely, with little to no consequence at all, as by the time you reach the end of the level, you'll be fully aware of all of Sonic's capabilities. And the best part is, Sonic 1 without the spin dash is still a really good game, and I would still recommend you to play it like that, regardless of the spin dash. And while yes, me personally, I do prefer the version with the spin dash just for the reasons I listed above, it's still a really good and enjoyable game regardless of whether you have it turned on and off. And that's the best part about it as well. You can turn it on and off. If you want to play vanilla Sonic 1, you can do that. If you want to play Sonic 1 with the spin dash, you can also do that. It doesn't really impact the game, and honestly, it just goes on a experience by experience basis. And to those of you who claim the Spin Dash's addition in Sonic 1 ruins the purity of what Sonic 1 originally was, we have save states now. Sonic 1 Vanilla did not have save states, and that's just one of the luxuries we can have with modern day gaming. We can pick and choose, we can toggle on and off what we want. And in all honesty, the spin dash being toggleable is the best way to go. To end this conversation about the spin dash off, the spin dash in Sonic 1 is not needed, nor is it an absolute must. It is a choice of the player on whether or not you want to play the game with or without the spin dash. If you're more used to Sonic 2 to Sonic Mania type of gameplay, yeah, go for it. Play what you're used to. But if you want to see what the original was like to play, go ahead and play without the spin dash. It's that simple. And that's the way I view it. It should just be based on what you want to play. And if you want to play the game with or without the spin dash, that's your choice. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I also feel I should mention how levels work in this game. It's relatively simple, as there's 3 sections / levels within a zone, with the third one containing Dr. Robotnik waiting for you at the end. This formula is okay, but it is done better in later entries with them either cutting down or flat out removing the third stage of the levels in later classic games. As for the negatives to Sonic 1's gameplay, there's only one that really comes to mind, and it's more of an error with the stage design than with the actual gameplay itself, and that's the spring traps. These things are scattered throughout multiple stages, and it feels like their only purpose is to annoy you, as a lot of them don't actually impact you negatively. There's only like 2 in the game, I think, that actually put you in unfavorable positions. The others just push you backwards right when you're about to feel free and feel fast in the game, and unless you know they're coming, they just hit you and there goes all your momentum, because guess what? You have to stop midway through your speed, and then you have to go ahead and gain it back again, and hope you don't forget that there's a spring waiting there for you, possibly starting the whole entire chain reaction all over again. And that's it. It just feels like an annoyance. There's nothing really to them, and that's the only real negative I have in general with the gameplay of Sonic 1. We will talk about the water later. Trust me. Anyway, to finish off my thoughts on Green Hill Zone itself, towards the end of the level, you do your first encounter with Dr. Robotnik, which is just 2 platforms and him swinging around a wrecking ball. It's a relatively easy boss, but since it's the first level, it's understandable, especially when looking at some of the boss fights down the line. As for the rest of Green Hill Zone, I'd have to say it's the perfect way to start off the game, and I believe it earns its place in video game history, as it's a genuinely fun and enjoyable stage to play through, and it's much more memorable than the first stage of Super Mario Bros. I'll tell you that much. I remember more about this stage than the other one. But this isn't about Mario, we're here for Sonic, and as I mentioned, this is still one of my favorite stages of all time, so let's go ahead and see what else Sonic 1 has to offer. You guys know how fun and fast Green Hill Zone was and how it allowed you to explore your speed in multiple different ways? Well, throw all that shit out the window, cause this is Marble Zone now, baby! Like, Jesus Christ! This is not only a contradiction in the style of gameplay that Green Hill Zone set up, but it's also a massive difficulty spike. Like, nothing in Green Hill Zone prepared you for this. It's like the American education system all over again. For example, in Green Hill Zone, there's only one area I can say that amps up my stress levels up as much as this level, and that's the area where you have to jump over the spike pits, and that's only because you can accidentally fall out of the stage when using invincibility, so you're not exactly 100% vulnerable. But in Marble Zone, everything, spring alarms, the enemies, the lava, to the fireballs, the spring traps, the platforming, everything wants to kill you in this level. It is actually insane. This stage is brutal for newcomers, and in my personal opinion, the main deciding factor on whether or not you make it through or not is the player's general experience and knowledge of not only how Sonic works, but how 2D platformers in general work. I have memories as a kid constantly meeting my end at Marble Zone for the reasons I just mentioned, as I mainly grew up with 3D platformers, with Sonic 1 being my first real introduction to a 2D platformer genre. But even then, this stage will probably halt a lot of people, and that's just solely based off of how Green Hill Zone conditioned you to think and view the level design, as this is the only stage in the game other than the final one where everything is pretty much out to get you, and unless you're patient and know how to deal with it, you are probably going to fail. and you're probably either going to get sent back to your last save state or back to the beginning, depending on the version you play. And in my opinion, that's just not really good for a second level. I would have rather much preferred SpringYard Zone to be the third level rather than this one, as it feels much more balanced out between the gameplays, and more about exploring the freedoms and exploring what this stage ends up doing, which is patience and trial and error. And while we're on the subject of stage placement, Marble Zone actually wasn't even supposed to be the second stage originally. That honor went to Labyrinth Zone, but it was removed due to how the developers felt the difficulty spike was way too much. And in some versions, it can actually be seen in the level select screen, as Labyrinth Zone will be the second level that you can select. And in some other early versions of the game, Marble Zone can actually be seen as the third level in the game before everything was reordered. So, yeah. Also, I can't be the only one who thought the stage was called Marble Garden Zone, right? I can't be the only one who mixed those two stages up here, right? Right? Anyway, I'm getting off track here. To summarize my overall feelings on this stage, it's still sort of a bane in my backside. I'm really serious. I'd much rather do Labyrinth Zone over this stage personally, as it really does feel like the whole entire stage is out to get you. Between the spikes and especially the enemy design, like this worm enemy that you guys are seeing on the screen right now, I honestly couldn't figure out how to kill him until like 2 months ago. It's that bad, at least for me personally. Like, it felt like no matter what I did, I still couldn't kill him without harming myself, and it was ridiculous. I was frustrated. Anyway, in my personal opinion, as I mentioned, the stage just, it's annoying. That's the best way to describe the stage. It's annoying, and it feels really out of place considering how Green Hill Zone's set up. As I mentioned earlier, I'd much rather this stage have been gone down the line, rather than having to play it as your second stage, as it really feels like it drills a big hole in how the pacing of the game goes. To end the level off, you encounter Robotnik once again, which, instead of trying to hit you with a wrecking ball this time around, he tries to set your ass on fire, which is a pretty drastic upturn to what the last fight was. He went to physically wanting to mangle you, to now wanting to see your burning corpse on the ground, which, at least to me, it's pretty funny. The boss fight this time around is also slightly bit difficult than the last one. As mentioned earlier, there's not only a pit of fire in the middle of the stage, but if you're not careful, Robotnik will light you and the platform you are on fire, which could easily result in a death. But once again, this is a relatively easy boss fight due to the fact Robotnik takes an eternity to launch the fireball at the ground, which leaves him vulnerable to 1 to 2 attacks before it launches. But like the last one, it's pretty easy if you know what you're doing, and it's a really smooth and fun way to end off the stage if you don't die on your way to hit the flickies. But before we end off this little section, let me orgasm about the music again, because I love the hell out of the stage's theme, and I just flat out spasm whenever I listen to the Tay Lopez remix of it. I mean, listen to this? The music of the stage is genuinely what always pushes me forward to see the end of the stage whenever I load up on it, which to me speaks a lot about how the soundtrack of this game makes you feel and how it's always pushing you to go on forward despite the challenges that arise in each of the levels. But that's all I really have to say about this stage, so why don't you say we move on to SpringYard Zone and see what that holds in store for us. So, to be frank, I'm not exactly sure how I would describe SpringYard Zone. I mean, for the most part, I like it, but there's just something about the stage that kind of turns me off. Maybe it's the way the stage looks, or just something to do with my weird dislike of spring/casino themed stages. I honestly can't tell you, it's just something about the stage just doesn't sit right with me. But if there was one word I would choose to use to describe this stage, it's trolling. The reason I say this is because there are multiple times that, without prior stage knowledge, there are times where you will get hit randomly by a spring and get sent back to an undesirable position, or maybe just flat out die because the enemy you missed is coming back for you. This mainly comes from springs set up across the stage, and these roly-poly enemies that just come out of nowhere. And unless you have the reaction skills of a god or have played the stage previously, you are going to get hit by these, and you are going to fall for the traps that the stage lays, which to me just makes it all the more annoying. Also, fuck these sections where there's a rotating spinning ball around a small platform. That shit is so stressful despite the fact I know I can pretty much effectively maneuver through them like 90% of the time. I can't be the only one who feels this still, right? However, I will say these sections are few and in between. And for the most part, the stage is actually really fun, and unlike Marble Zone, is able to create a layout that's pretty well balanced for both speed and platforming, and that's where my general liking of the stage comes from, as it feels, aside from the elevator sections, the stage has a really fun pacing and allows for veteran players and newcomers to maneuver through the stage pretty easily if they are aware of the obstacles up ahead. Also, to reiterate, it feels like this level in general pretty much set the stage for casino levels in other Sonic games and the layout of how they work, such as Carnival Night Zone. It clearly takes inspiration for this level from the bouncing to the speed sections, which is pretty cool to me once you notice it. The music is also really good at setting the mood in the stage and really gets you in a meaningful yet cheerful theme that kind of tells you, hey, the stage is dangerous, you're going to be bouncing around with loads of troubles, but if you have what it takes, you can keep going and beat the finish line. It's really nice to listen to, and just remember what I told you when you're listening to this next clip. See, isn't the soundtrack awesome for this? It really matches the up and downs of the stage, and honestly, it almost single-handedly redeems all the negatives I just mentioned about, because I feel like as long as I have that music playing in the background, I'll always have the hopeful sense that I will make it through the stage. And a lot of the soundtrack does do that, as I've mentioned with things such as Marble Zone and Green Hill Zone. They propel you forward and always tell you that you are able to do these things, and you are able to reach the end of the level to take on Robotnik. It's really inspiring, and I don't think the Sonic 1 soundtrack gets enough credit for that, as songs such as this are easily forgotten by most Sonic fans unless they're included in something like Sonic Generations' soundtrack. It's really incredible, and once we get to my favorite stage in the game, this really gets highlighted. But anyway, I need to talk about the final boss, as for the most part those are my thoughts on the stage. So, what does Dr. Robotnik have for us once we meet him at the end of the stage? Well, you're in for a really unique boss fight, as Robotnik doesn't even have to hit you once for you to lose this fight, as instead of trying to take out Sonic, he takes out the platforms you're standing on and remove it permanently for the rest of the level. Meaning, this boss actually requires you to position yourself right, or risk taking away a vital piece of stage that you will need to traverse to the other side. I mean, most of the time you should be able to beat him before serious hazards start stacking up, but I really like the way this stage does that. This is also evident because that very pathway that he's destroying is the way you get to the end of the stage, meaning that if you end up on the wrong side and you beat him, you technically just lost the boss fight regardless, as you won't be able to get to the other side, and that to me just adds a whole entire new layer of strategy rather than frustration. It's really good and requires you to think 10 steps ahead to make sure that you will beat Robotnik. It's also even possible to beat him while he's in the air if you have enough running room, which adds a whole entire another level of strategy that really makes me appreciate this boss fight for as simple as it is. So to summarize my final thoughts on the stage, I honestly like it. Like, I know I trash talked it a lot in the beginning, but I feel like the negatives, at least for me at this point in time, do not outweigh the positives. And as I mentioned early on in the review, most of the negatives mainly come from those who will come to the game new and don't know what's ahead. As a person who can verify what is ahead in the stage, I honestly like it, as it nicely balances out the idea of platforming and the idea of speed that Green Hill set out. And in my personal opinion, I think this should have been the second stage rather than Marble Hill, because you would have at least had a little bit more leniency, not only into the difficulty curve, but into the platforming aspect of Marble Zone. And that's just my basic opinion. Of course, you're free to challenge that down in the comments, but we do have to get to our next stage, which is, ironically enough, the opposite of Marble Zone. And I know this is probably going to be the point of the review that a lot of you have been looking forward to on my thoughts. So let's not waste more time and get straight into it. So this stage has a bit of complicated history with the Sonic community. If you ask anyone anywhere, they'll tell you the stage is utter hell and is way too difficult. However, my opinion's probably going to be a really controversial one, and I'm here to say it's a load of bullshit. The stage isn't that hard. Look, before you guys burn me alive at the cross, I think I need to explain myself a bit more. The level isn't necessarily Green Hill Zone easy, but at the same time, it's not as hard as the final stage. I say that because most of the time when you die, it's not the stage's responsibility. It was on you. For example, one of the biggest complaints I hear about the stage comes from the frequency of people drowning. But the one thing is that as long as you're consistently grabbing air bubbles, you shouldn't be drowning. And for those who say, oh, no, there's not enough air bubbles, or oh, there's not enough spots in between areas for air bubbles, to that I say, there are. I have gone back and played this level at least more than 5 times for this review, and I can tell you, I did not drown once, simply because I knew there was always going to be an air bubble in the area I was about to encounter. In fact, the only time I was about to die wasn't due to me, it was due to how Sonic runs underwater, and we will get to that later on in this section. But once again, there are more than enough air bubbles to avoid drowning. If anything, the main reason you should be dying in this stage is either from pitfalls or the environment. And not by the environment of water, I mean the environment of spikes. And we will also get into that later. But perhaps the best way to describe how I feel about how people should tackle the stage is by using the high school mile run. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar or just didn't participate, the mile run is essentially a way to see how fast one can complete a mile in high school. And I feel like it is the best allegory to choose. The reason why is that, imagine you're at the starting line, and they blow the whistle. You're going to have kids who are just slowed down at the beginning, and kids who just bolt on through, and then the ones in the middle. The ones who bolt on through, they are the ones more likely to get a lower score, simply because they're wasting all their energy on that initial boost. And those who either stay in the middle or stay behind and are actually trying. I feel like I should mention that because I know there was a lot of people who did that who didn't actually try. They are the ones more likely to succeed, simply because they're taking it at their own pace, that they recognize their own limits, and that they know they're saving their energy for that final burst when they're about to see that finish line. That's when they're about to use it. And they'll be the ones likely to get the greater score simply because they conserved their energy better than those who thought it was a good idea to just dash off at the beginning. And while I am not saying that this is universal, obviously you have people like track stars and everything like that who can keep up that speed while at the same time pacing themselves, the allegory still stands. The main issue that people probably have is that they're trying to go fast when the stage is encouraging them to take a slower pace with it. The music even reinforces this, as it's not really an action-based score. It's more of a slow, calm tone. And I feel like this is something that people just don't get when it comes to the stage. You're not supposed to go through it super fast. You're supposed to take your time and allow yourself to pace yourself throughout the stage. And that's what I think where most people's deaths come from. It's from them either not pacing themselves enough to the point where they drown, or pacing themselves to the point where they're just going to get knocked by the obstacles and lose the rings. And I feel like it should more often be the latter, as I mentioned earlier, there's more than enough bubbles to keep you guys alive. And that's just the way I personally view this. You can disagree with me in the comments, because for all I know, I could be wrong. I could be just speaking out of my ass here, but at least for me, that's just how I generally view it. So, to get off on what I think are personal negatives of the stage, The stage hazards, aside from the water, and Sonic's movement. Sonic's movement underwater is not perfect, I'm gonna say that right now. It can be wonky at times, especially when I mentioned earlier there's this one part where I almost drowned simply because Sonic's underwater mechanics just pushed me onto the next platform instead of dropping me downward. There are moments like that where the water mechanics just don't work as they were intended. There's also this weird glitch. I am not 100% sure if it continues on in the other games, but when you're sliding down the water slide, I believe in Acts 2 or 3, the way you get to the room is by just holding down. And that's not really portrayed right. You hear the sound effect go off, but you don't see Sonic turn into a ball to gain momentum, and I feel like that's a design flaw they probably should have fixed, especially since it would have just simply required replacing that one animation with the rolling ball animation. But once again, maybe that was time constraints. I'm not the directors of the game, I can't tell you that. But to get back on track, I feel like the stage hazards in this are a bit wonky. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, especially when it comes to the things like the spikes and the rising platforms. It really feels weird. I personally don't know how to feel about them. They just feel really inconsistent in their hitboxes, and although I do feel a majority of them are easy to avoid just by simply having a decent reaction time, it at the same time feels like I understand once again where some players are coming from on this stage is hard. And I know I'm coming from a place of a veteran person who knows how to manage their rings correctly, and as a result I can just get hit by these, pick up a ring, and I know I will be good to go for the rest of the level. But I don't know, like, they're even, I guess. You guys can fill that in the comment section about how you feel about the spikes, the enemies, the platforms that rise. Me personally, I feel like it's decently balanced, but at the same time I feel like they could have done much better for what would have been this water theme level. And I think things like Aquatic Ruin Zone, Hydro Plants, not Hydro Plant, I got two stages mixed up there, Hydrosity Zone, Chemical Plant, they handle the water aspect slightly better, less on Chemical Plant Zone, but you guys know what I mean. To be frank, while technically I am saying get good, at the same time I don't want you guys to take away from this section specifically that if you are unable to consistently beat the stage, you just suck. No, I think it's just an issue with the mindset most people take towards the stage, and I think that's the main issue, and where most people have trouble with the stage. It's the idea of pacing oneself and having to deal with this test of endurance rather than having to just simply speed on through the stage. And the reason why this is probably going to end up being the largest section is because I want to try to communicate that as best as I can. If you die to the stage, it's likely not on you, it's more on your thought process of trying to beat the stage. Because I can guarantee you, if you guys just adopt the thought process I mentioned of taking your time and planning ahead as much as possible, I do think that you will be able to beat the stage relatively easily, like I have. I think, as I mentioned, I almost died once, but once again, that was all on me. I don't think it was any fault of the stage, it was just me trying to get this out of the way for the review. But yeah, that's the lesson I want you guys to take away from this specific section. There's some times in these games where you do have to be patient, and there's times where those who try to go fast are going to be punished. But at the same time, if you practice out the ideals I just said, and if you, well, this is going to sound repetitive, but practice out the stage, because in all likelihood, you're going to practice out the stage regardless if you're just dying this often. But if you do those things, this stage will mean nothing, and you should be able to conquer this stage. But I still got a boss fight to talk about, and we still got 3 other sections left, I believe, so I'm just gonna shut up here, and we're just gonna move on to the boss fight. I'm really excited to talk about this boss, because it's one of my favorites, actually, in the game. So, the boss fight itself isn't even a fight, because you don't need to damage him at all to win. It's really misleading, actually. I blame the communication of the developers a lot on this, because it does not communicate to you at all what you're actually supposed to be doing. You think you need to beat Robotnik by chasing him up there. You don't. You don't even have to touch him once on the way up, and the game just does a poor job communicating that, and I believe that's where a majority of deaths from this one boss come from. But let me explain to you why I really like this boss compared to the other ones. Hey guys, post-recording Sonic here. Excuse the air conditioner in the background, I forgot to turn it off, but while I was looking through the boss footage for this specific section, I remembered that we actually encountered a really funny and weird glitch during the final boss section, and I just want to quickly share that with you guys. So, enjoy the clip, and after that we'll just go back to the normal review. The end of the boss fight there. Like, that's how easy the fight is. We were right there. I'm actually just gonna rewind. We're not getting past it. I actually also want to challenge myself to see if I can just do it. What the hell? That never happens. Hold up. Oh, hold up. Wait. What the fuck was that? That's never popped up in all of my time playing the stage. That is the first time I have seen that thing. The reason I really like this boss battle is because it tests you to ensure that you know and have learned the lesson I've already mentioned above. Because on one hand, if you're going too fast, yes, you are going to arguably be able to complete the boss fight faster, but you're more in danger of getting hit by one of the multiple obstacles waiting for you in this corridor. However, if you're going too slow, the water will eventually catch up to you, and if you're not fast enough to act, then you will drown. The section relies on you having a nice understanding of the idea of pacing and endurance, and I feel if you've nailed that down at this point, it's technically the easiest boss fight in the game. I mean, hell, writing for this review, I outran the water twice, and it only caught up to me on the final 4 jumps. So the points I made earlier apply to this one too, and that's why I really feel like this is probably my favorite boss fight, aside from the final one. But as I said earlier, it's not simply because of what I mentioned earlier with it not communicating very well to you as to how you're supposed to tackle this. But anyway, I'm slightly getting off track. But once you beat it, Robotnik runs away like a coward, and if you want, you can get a hit in. It doesn't matter. I personally always do it because it's always fun just seeing Robotnik just ignite in flames for 1 split second. But once you free your flicky friends, you're free, and closing off one of the most infamous levels in Sonic's history. Oh my god, the next stage is gonna be a good one. I'm telling you guys, it is going to be a good one. So, we're almost at the end, guys, and what awaits us here? Starlight Zone. This stage is one of my absolute favorites in Sonic 1, and it's up there in my top 10 favorite stages of the franchise. The reason being, the stage is so extremely cathartic. Because of all the hardships we've gone through in the past 3 levels, this stage provides the instant stress relief that was needed after all we went through. This stage sees the return of gameplay we loved so much in Green Hill, and even spices it up with some platforming sections. Even loop-the-loops are back, and for a really good reason. There are loads of sections in this level where you'll just be rolling around, and you will be pushing the speed limit once again like you did in Green Hill. And the best part is, the game never actually punishes you for going that fast. It actually warns you and stops you via the fan system exclusive to this level that communicates to the player, hey, the section ahead will require you to take things slowly. We're going to have to ask you to slow down here. And it does that wonderfully because it never feels forced like things like spring traps and actual rocks and obstacles. It rather feels like a natural way to tell the player to slow down. So right off the bat, as soon as you start Act 1, you're introduced to a new type of enemy that is pretty much a stationary bomb with a gigantic spread. And once again, I will praise the stage to high heavens because it tells you as soon as you start the act the danger that these possess, and it's for a good reason. Aside from rotating spike balls and bomb enemies, there's no real way for you to die on this stage. There are no stage hazards like spikes or lava to actually kill you. And at most, there's death pits, and even then, it's hard to fall into them. Basically, what this means is that as long as you take care of your ring count, you should be fine, and that's awesome. It adds on to why I like the stage so much. It's because it's the relaxation stage. Why shouldn't you have it easier at this point, especially after dealing with the previous stages and the upcoming final stage? Starlight Zone is your rest stop before reaching the main destination, and I feel like I can praise it all day for the absolutely fantastic job it does at it. The stage is so well designed for relaxation And for all the reasons I listed above, it's perfect to just play around on it. It's like Green Hill all over again. It is your personal playground. Let me get started on this music, because my god, it complements the stage and how you should be feeling so well. The way it just feels so cathartic, and I keep using that word, but I really mean it, because it makes you feel proud, it makes you feel happy. It's all like giddy and warm inside type of feelings, if you guys know what I'm saying. It communicates to you, hey, you've made it this far, keep going, you're almost at the end. And it's just so great. The way the rhythm is just so uptuned and just happy. It just affects you so positively that whenever I hear this theme, I just can't help but put on a gigantic smile on my face, and it's just so great. It also kind of helps it has the same rhythm as Remember the Time by Michael Jackson. Yeah, we're getting our Michael Jackson in 3 games before he actually should pop up. So, that's fun. But just as I have done with the rest of the music sections, listen to this song. I'm gonna put on the Tay Lopez remix of it, and you guys are going to see what I mean. The only negative I can think with this stage is the seesaw mechanic, which honestly isn't even that bad, because while yes, they probably could have just used springs, the seesaws can leave you in sticky situations if you somehow mess up the jump, which adds on to the difficulty of the level, when it's already relatively easy. Not to mention the seesaws, if you misproperly time your jump, can accidentally lead to one of the death pits. Which is one of the few times I can think of dying to the death pits, is literally one specific section. So it's honestly not that bad, it's just there. That's how I view it. And unfortunately, the seesaws kind of sneak their way into the boss fight, as it's the main way you damage Robotnik. The way this boss fight works is that Robotnik drops bombs on the seesaws, and you either have to launch yourself or the bombs at Robotnik. If you're unsuccessful, the bombs will explode in a similar manner to the way the bomb enemies worked in the level. It's there. It's fun for the most part. I can't really complain, but it's a meh boss. It's probably one of the most forgettable Sonic bosses of all time. It's not even bad. It's just there. But in all honesty, for a stage that was all meant for relaxation and fun, I think it works. And I really, really enjoyed my time in Starlight Zone, and even to this day, I will sometimes load up my Switch just to play this one level, just to hear that music, and just to have that experience. But we are close to the end, my friends, so unfortunately we must leave my favorite stage and move on to the finale, and that is Scrap Brain Zone. Hi guys, just wanted to leave you guys off with one last thing. This is post-editing Sonic here. I found out that the stage originally was supposed to represent the utopian version of how technology messes with society, which was a theme that they were trying to go through for a majority of the game. It's just due to level balancing, they had to swap it out. And you can look more into this because it's really interesting to see the thematic that they went with, but it just adds more reason to like the stage. It is the utopia of what happens when both man and machine work together to create something great, and they can live in harmony together because of it. But that's all I really wanted to say. It's just another reason I love this stage so much. It's such a fun stage. Anyway, I should let you guys get back to the next section because this video is already long enough. So, other than the Green Hill portion of this review, I'd have to say this was the second hardest stage for me to look at. And that's mainly just because I couldn't really figure out what to say about this stage, to be honest. That was until now. So, Scrap Brain Zone is the final zone, and obviously it earns its title. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is actually still a difficult stage for the most part. And in the context of 1991, Jesus Christ, because back then, this was meant to kill you and send you straight back to the beginning. Thank God we have save states now, but I cannot imagine dying and then having to restart all the way back at Green Hill Zone. That must have really sucked for you guys back then. Because literally, in the first beginning moments of the stage, you could die. The platforms collapse right under you, and if you do not know that, you are dead, my friend. It kind of reminds me of old Castlevania design, where you have to overcome the level based on a balance of experience and patience. And the second you try to rush through or run through one of the levels, you are stopped by the brutal enemy or level design. It's nowhere as brutal as Metropolis Zone from Sonic 2, and we will get there. You can bet your ass we will get there when we get there. But it certainly will give you trouble on the first few runs. In fact, the levels are actually pretty short once you overcome the most challenging parts of it, which in my opinion really balances out the difficulty nicely, as yes, it can be hard, but once you overcome that hard part, the rest of the level is pretty simple. Another thing to point out, which is going to anger a lot of people who didn't know this, is that surprise surprise, Labyrinth Zone is back for a third section, as if players didn't have enough of it 2 zones ago. Which, in all honesty, is pretty confusing. I'm just amending this post-production, but I don't know why Labyrinth Zone was brought back. There's probably some obscure interview that explains why they reused Labyrinth Zone's assets, but it's back, and it's not that good. This is mainly because they artificially increased the difficulty of the third section by not scattering as much bubbles as there were in Labyrinth Zone. This is one situation where you can actually say there's not enough bubbles. And this is also because the way the enemies are placed, they are placed especially to fuck you over if you aren't ready to encounter those bubbles. There's one section I can especially remember where if you don't make your way up perfectly, you will miss the bubble and drown instantly. This section right here is what I imagine what Labyrinth Zone is for the rest of you guys, and I don't even know how you guys got past Scrap Brain Zone number 3, because Jesus Christ, it is actually decently difficult, especially like I said when it comes to the scarcity of those bubbles. Like, just 1 or 2 placements could have changed my mind about this, but Jesus Christ, there is not enough bubbles in this specific stage. Despite all of the complaints I have about the stage and that atrocious third section, I'd still say the stage, for the most part, is decently enjoyable, as the atmosphere does reinforce the idea that, hey, this is the end, and you gotta push on through, by doing things like the unique background and the way the music pulls a big favorite rhythm of mine that great boss battle themes do, where the music for the most part is dark and weary, but then all of a sudden it goes into a cheerful and hopeful styled tune to remind the player, hey, you can do it, this is it, there is a ray of hope that you will get through this, and that alone just makes it all the more empowering. And I gotta give my praises to the composer, because my god, the way he does these things that just make you want to push on through the stage, it's just utterly amazing in my eyes, and it does indeed help mitigate some of the negatives that I do have towards this stage. But let's move on to the boss fight. After hitting some springs, you're launched straight into Final Zone, and the music switches to a nice, dramatic, atmospheric remix of the primary boss theme, fitting for the final battle that you're about to take. And as you load into the stage, you realize your rings didn't carry over, and there are no rings in this stage. And you have no choice. You have to run forward, wondering what this final encounter is going to be. And as you enter the room, the door locks behind you, and shows you that Robotnik's final plan, his final effort to defeat you, is to literally crush you. The way he plans to defeat you in the stage is that he has 4 hydraulic presses, one of which he will randomly be in each time it comes up. And you'll have to be fast enough to hit and avoid the ones that are coming at you. After avoiding or hitting him, the Tesla coils above you will then spawn and spark 4 purple electric orbs to fall to the ground and hit you. After that, it's rinse and repeat. This is probably my favorite classic Sonic boss fight, as unlike Sonic 2's boss fight, or many other final bosses, the amount of rings doesn't matter for Sonic 1's boss fight, as the main way of you dying is through an environmental mechanic,
not one that can be prevented by rings. So it makes sense, and as a result, it makes it not only more fun, but more stressful as a result of how the fight is designed, as if you die to the purple orbs, let's be honest, you deserve to die by those purple orbs. Those things are so slow moving that it is almost impossible to actually die by them. But the fight is so well designed and balanced around this aspect, and I really enjoyed simply because you aren't going to die due to lack of rings and a bad jump point. You're going to die because you predicted incorrectly or reacted wrongly and got squashed by Robotnik, and I feel like that feels like a satisfying way to do the boss fight, as it's down not to the way you can reclaim your rings, but rather your reaction speed and how long you can go until you can defeat Robotnik. Speaking of which, after triumphing over Robotnik, he tries to run away, but as Sonic says, he's too slow, and we just give him a goal whack and his transport explodes and falls into the ground below. Foiling his plans, Sonic runs back to Green Hill Zone as the credits begin to roll into cute cutscenes and a nice montage of each level and their unique theme, giving us a great retrospective of the adventure we just had as we see all the fun memories we had along the way. And we get sent back to the starting screen as the credits go black. Wait, why is Robotnik smiling and laughing? What's he juggling around? Why does it say try again? I'm so confused. Wait. Oh, yeah. I should probably talk about the special stages and Chaos Emeralds now, huh? Alright, let's move on to the next part of this retrospective. So what is a special zone? Well, they're extra minigames unlocked by having 50 rings at the end of each stage and jumping into the giant ring that spawns after the goalpost. So afterwards, you're teleported to what can be described as a weird drug trip filled with bedazzled looking blocks and peppermint candies. It's a pretty weird place. It's like a 70s drug trip in there. Regardless, upon making your way through the maze without getting hit by any exit icons, you'll encounter a room with nothing in it but the exits and a trapped Chaos Emerald inside. By breaking open the cage protecting said Chaos Emerald, you jump right into it and bada bing bada boom, you got 1 out of 6 emeralds. Yeah, you heard right, 6, not 7 emeralds. 7 emeralds actually didn't come into the play until the second game, which makes sense as there's only 7 stages in total in the game, there being 8 plus in Sonic 2. It's about the opportunities the game gives you, and in Sonic 1, there aren't that many opportunities. The main reason not only being the stage count, but the requirement. As I mentioned earlier, the requirement for getting into the stages in the first place is the challenge, because in some stages, you basically have to do a no-hit run in order to get the rings to spawn in, and the game doesn't even spawn in enough rings to replenish you if you reach halfway throughout the stage and get damaged. And that's where my main problem with the special stages in this game come in. It's not from the special stages, because honestly, these are my probably second to third favorite special stages in all of Sonic history. And they're relatively fun and easy to beat, but it just comes from how difficult it can be to reach it, especially for newer players or those without save states. I mean, if you watched my playthrough, I literally had to make an entire montage of getting all the emeralds solely because I messed up my save state. Which is kind of unfortunate. It tanks the value for me, not to mention it tanks the value of loads of the stages in the game simply because of this limit. For example, on this channel's playthrough of Sonic 1, we had to restart countless upon countless times, and in some situations even montage or flat out cut out our attempts at making it to 50 rings at the end of the stage, simply because of how difficult it was. And the thing is, call me a hypocrite simply just cause of what I said during Labyrinth Zone, but these stages are genuinely difficult to reach at times, simply due to the fact that they don't give you enough rings if you fail halfway throughout the stage. Like literally, there were times in the playthrough where I knew I was halfway through the stage, and I knew if I got hit, I wouldn't be able to replenish my rings, which sucks the enjoyment out of stages such as Marble Zone and SpringYard Zone, simply because those stages, it is kinda hard to not get hit, at least on your first time. And if you don't know the proper strategy, or as I mentioned earlier, what lies ahead, it becomes damn near impossible to do so. You need to 100% know what's coming at you 100% of the time, and I guarantee you, without the rewind function we had on the PC version, it probably would have required me to spend upwards of 30 to an hour simply to get a no-hit run on certain stages. And like I said, you can call me a hypocrite and just say get good, as I sort of told you guys in the Labyrinth Zone, but I'm just trying to speak in general here. This was my personal experience, and I feel like it's a lot of a personal experience for you guys as well. And hell, I got all emeralds by the time I made it to Labyrinth Zone. I can't imagine how difficult it is to make it through that zone having to live with 50 rings, because the main reason I personally got through that zone was because I kept sacrificing my rings because I knew I'd be able to retrieve them. I can't imagine having to hold on to 50 of them till the end of the stage. That sounds like an utter nightmare. And in my personal opinion, what makes it worse? It really isn't all that worth to collect them. Unlike in Sonic 2, Sonic 3, or any future Sonic games where you collect all the emeralds, you don't get any form of reward pretty much for getting them in this game. There's no Super Sonic for you to obtain. That wasn't even invented yet. You just get the satisfaction of seeing a end screen. Literally, it's an end screen. And it just tanks the value for you, because aside from that, and well, I forgot to add this into the script, but you get cute particle effects and flowers at the end of Sonic 1 if you manage to get it. But there is no reason to go for them aside from a feeling of accomplishment. And unless you're willing to do that, and unless you're willing to possibly sacrifice your first impressions of a stage, it's not that worth going. And to be honest, that's all I can really say about the special stages in this game. They're not really that worth for going for, unless you want to see the quote-unquote true ending. But that's all I really have to say on these stages. They're really fun. I really enjoy them. I have had fun every single time I have been in them. But it's just the way you get them and the lack of reward that makes them not really that worth it to me in the end. And unfortunately, it does tank the value a bit of the stages and the game a bit. So now that we're at the end, what are my final thoughts on the game? Sonic 1 is what started everything we know, love, and hate about the Blue Hedgehog and his friends. The gameplay and music is really well designed that to this day, the game still captivates people and sees wide release on almost every single modern console and mobile device. And despite what the franchise has gone through for the past 25 years, it still has a consistent fan base that follows up on it. While Sonic the Hedgehog 1 isn't the greatest classic Sonic game, it still holds up and keeps a special place in everyone's heart. And it's for that reason why, despite all the faults, and while I will admit, actually, that it's not a perfect game, it definitely is an enjoyable one, and if someone wants to get into Sonic, I definitely recommend this one. To go a bit off tangent here, and excuse if this part has any cuts or weird edits, because I'm just mad-libbing this, there's no script this time. I feel like, despite the game's faults, and I know I've just said this, it's still a really good game. It's not the perfect game, and I know what I said about the spin dash. It's still great, and the spin dash is definitely worth playing the game with, as I mentioned earlier as well. And I just really want to say that this is what started it all. This is the first game of the Sonic series, and while, yes, it's not exactly perfect, it still holds on to the core concepts of what made the Hedgehog we know. It gave us the speed, the loop-de-loops, the environment of the levels, the special stages, Robotnik, Sonic, Flickies. It gave us all these wonderful things, including things like the music. If there's one thing we can say, the music has always been good in Sonic games. Well, I don't know about Blast or 3D Blast, but you know what? The music, for the most part, has always remained consistent, along with all these other things. These are things that have always been here since the franchise's beginning, and they all originated in this game, and they still continue to hold on to those values, even in the worst of times in these games. I mean, Night of the Wind, for example, one of the lowest regarded Sonic games of all time, has amazing music, nails Sonic personality, and still manages to keep up the nice characters we love, just reimagined. And it's for that reason I'm going on this tangent. I simply want you guys to know that I am not going to praise this game as the best classic Sonic game, because to be frank, it isn't. It's not the best Sonic game, it's not the best classic, but I'd be dumb if I didn't say it still held a special place in my heart, simply for what it stands for and for what it means to everyone. And that's all I have to say really about this game. Sonic CD will be coming soon, and I will be working on that almost as soon as this is done. I still have to edit all of this. And technically, while this has evolved into an editor's note at this point, I still want to know that if you made it through all my dumb rambling, if you've made it through all the things I had to say, leave your thoughts down below, because I want to hear what you guys say. This is one man's opinion. It is not fact. I'm just so passionate about this franchise that I want to try and see what other people think. I want to try and converse with you guys. I want to see what you mean. I want to see what you like and hate about this franchise that just binds us all together. And on that note, I'm going to end the video off here. Thank you guys for coming to the first Sonic 1 retrospective, and I will see you in the next time. Hi guys, post-editing Sonic here. This is probably going to be going over the credits, but now that I'm finished editing the video, I feel like I really want to thank each and every single one of you guys who stayed around and just watched this gigantic fruit of labor. I didn't even expect it to be almost an hour long, it just ended up that way. And yeah, no, just a big thank you to everyone who has supported me along the way. And if you guys want to see more content like this, please like, share, comment, subscribe, so that way I know personally that all this work I put in hasn't gone to waste, and that you guys want to see more of this type of content, because I am willing to make it, and mainly just because I love gaming and I love this specific franchise in general. So the CD video is likely the one to come out next. I'm not 100% sure. It might be that game I mentioned earlier, but yeah, no, this is mainly here just because I want to thank everyone for coming through the video, and also for seeing the evolution of my editing, because I'm not gonna lie, the editing in this is not very consistent with each and every part, but I'm learning, so I guess you can't really blame me on that right now. But no, I just genuinely want to thank everyone who watched this video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful and fantastic day. This is me, signing out. Goodbye.